recruits, just to combat Cypher. Rubbing our noses in bloody battlefield dirt. All for revenge. The world calls for wet work, and we answer. No greater good. No just cause. Dogs of war for 9 whole years. That ends today. Now you're not sleeping, and we're not junkyard hounds. We're diamond dogs.
Entree one and all to my first contact analysis of what is a huge game and just as highly anticipated. First things first, you're all safe to watch this and my further in-depth analysis and head-to-heads of this stunning game, as I will keep them all spoiler free. No viewer's discretion is required. Anything you see here, you would have seen it and more if you watched any of the trailers for the Phantom Pain's announcement and or trailers and demos since then. The game, like the world contents therein, is just as huge, and after many hours sunk in it already, it will keep you enthralled throughout its tale of punished Venom Snake and his seeking of revenge. As I am still awaiting my PS4 and PC release, we get to enjoy the Xbox One version and how it stacks up. After Konami very commendably had a comparison up before release showing all versions, as we now know the PS4 renders at the same 1920 by 1080 resolution as the prior Ground Zeroes, but here the Xbox One takes a large increase over Ground Zeroes from that game's 1280 by 720 resolution, now seeing over 50% improvement at 1600 by 900. It means the machine has to render over 500,000 more pixels per frame. A decent and welcome improvement, but does it come at a price? We shall see. As you can see here from my comparison shot, it helps smooth out the sub-pixel shimmer from thin lines or grills at oblique angles, along with specular edging on metals and wet surfaces. Overall a decent polish on the last game's relatively poor IQ on the Xbox One, backed up by a similar looking FXAA pass from that. It is always great for still pictures, and they're very cheap, meaning quick and light in the GPU budget solution that fits into most games, as it is a post-process pass, but like most anti-aliasing solutions, implementations can and do vary. Its biggest weakness is that it can muddy textures and has no temporal element, so from frame to frame the noise is not cleaned up, which gives that wavy shimmering look at points. But the display is still very clean, and this is greatly improved by its temporal resolution being supported with its 60 FPS rate, which is a big plus for image clarity. It is not perfect and can still have some larger areas of instability, but it never really distracts or impedes your play or enjoyment, and is a much better solution than what we saw in Ground Zeroes. The solution is given more material to work with here due to its increased resolution, so it performs better, and in conjunction with the incredible lighting model contained in the game. In Fox Engine, Kojima Productions have made not only a very impressive and versatile engine, as seen from its showings from Pro Evolution Soccer, PT and here in Metal Gear Solid, but also its ability to scale across hardware specs and platforms. From what we have already seen on the PS4 version, we know it can improve in the console space, and then again, it can scale up to far more powerful PC setups, offering up improved LOD levels, light sources, post effects and even render at 4K 60 FPS. Not only that, but from the previous very solid launch on PC that had very few issues and ran across most medium level gaming PCs well, but it had a decent choice of options, this has reportedly been increased further, which I will cover in more detail when I get my hands on it. What all versions homogeneously share is the same linear lighting system and texture work that splays out such a mesmerising playground before you that genuinely feels alive and natural. From the diffused structure of the Afghan rocks to the Fresnel specular bounce of Mother Base's platforms, everything looks and portrays its physical properties accurately, as the physically based renderer that is at the heart of the engine works with all these energy conservation techniques, from direct and indirect light bounce, allowing all the objects to react to the same light source in its own unique and correct way. From the coarse army fatigue fabric to the highly reflective hospital tiled floors, skin also portrays this incredibly well, allowing sweat to appear within scenes in gameplay and then later light to diffuse into and across it, such as the moonlight here. This also happens through the game as the fully dynamic time of day and weather system combined with its very integral linear lighting model, which allows the game to display such a vast scale of light from one end of the spectrum in daytime to the other, combined with its core specular and diffuse reflectance properties. This is a rough example of what the engine actually does. You see, to create such a realistic looking world, it all revolves around the lighting reaction within. The engine can work in a much greater range than a normal TV or monitor can display, enabling them to capture all materials with a very high or actually long exposure. In camera terms, this means the shutter is left open longer to gather the low intensity light. This is combined with the objects and areas' luminance affecting how much detail is kept. This is handled through a new set of processes within the pipeline, involving gamma decoding and gamma correction. Colour correction is vital in this model, as I described in my The Order 1886 technical analysis. They captured as many materials as they could this way, and then touched up by hand to deliver its correct physical properties and accurate RGB value for display. This new method is not only a big change for this generation, with more and more games as expected adopting this, from my upcoming Until Dawn analysis, Advanced Warfare, even The Witcher 3 had elements. The older method was all artist controlled and hand tailored. They would create each texture and object and then tweak to within an inch of its life to get the desired result. A PBR workflow means that this all gets taken away from the artist and instead becomes a far more physics-based process that follows light consumption properties, radiosity calculations and reflectance. In simple form, the design team no longer create textures as much as they now create materials. Then composite these sections from specular albedo, reflectance, diffuse normals, all allowing the same object that before would look flat in all light sources to now become far more realistic and convincing. All calculated based on these predefined rules and material properties. More and more games will adopt this, like the forthcoming Star Wars Battlefront and more. But how does all this work within this new, sadly to be largely discarded engine? Unless of course Konami decide to license it. With the engine being a deferred renderer, as it would have been the only way to allow such an intense lighting model to exist. This decouples the world geometry rendering stage from the lighting element, allowing a scene to have far more light sources and reaction than forward rendering. This also requires a bigger memory footprint, as an additional buffer is needed, referred to as a G buffer, meaning geometry. That, as the engine name method suggests, is deferred until later in the pipeline. Scanning across a scene, it creates its own geometry texture store containing, amongst others, the material ID, roughness, diffuse albedo, specular albedo, depth and velocity. The light information is built from the normal map, specular, roughness, translucency and finally material ID. This is not only per scene but per object. Then in a separate light accumulation buffer, the specular and diffuse info is stored along with the depth pass data. This is then all combined to create the impressive image, adding post effects along with fog to accentuate depth and atmosphere where needed. The roughness is a key element of the stage, mixed with a specular and view dependent roughness process allows lights and surfaces to reflect differently dependent on the surface roughness, distance from light source and camera position. All combined, the shaders allow Sky to use illuminance, creating the ambient light and bounce diffuse correctly. Man-made lights like the spotlight use luminance flux that allows the point light source to calculate the light attenuation level. This is how it cascades and disperses across the scene realistically. All these effects of light reflectance, atmospheric scattering, translucency is fully supported on all lights, which includes a cheap approximate subsurface scattering pass on skin, which seems to be missing from the Xbox One version after my hands-on look here. I was sent some images on Twitter of the PS4 version, thanks Jaglymans, and it looks to be in use on that version as the softer shadows and blurred skin tones. I can also confirm that the day one patch to version 1.01 does not change this, but it may or may not come in a later patch. You can be sure I will cover this and much more in my detailed analysis. Elsewhere, signs of the game's cross-gen roots do present themselves. Polygon topology is of a more frugal allocation and instead, like previous games from the team, relies far more on the texture detail and normal map to generate the detail where vertices are not in abundance. This would be of a most likely greater density if the game did not have to run on weaker and, more importantly, tiny memory-endowed hardware. Its deferred base will already be eating into its allocation on both the PS3 and 360 machines. At times the game can look great combined with its focal length adjusted depth of field, which mimics a camera's focus and FOV shift, motion blur which delivers well in both cutscenes and gameplay, another calculation from the velocity buffer allowing a sample rate at a per object level. But at others it can look like a last generation upgrade with lingering face close-ups, but these are few and far between, with the overall game being one that delivers some gobsmacking results. Early morning in the desert looks sumptuous, and of course the same rule applies. Wetter is always better. And this lower polygon mesh is an obvious sacrifice, as having the team create separate geometry assets would not only be expensive but timely. This is the only real noticeable sacrifice on a visual stance, aside some minor LOD popping, whilst helping to promote its base target of 60 FPS on now gen hardware, and allows us to answer the question asked at the start. Does this improvement in world scale and resolution come at a trade-off in Ground Zero's pretty much locked 60 delivery? In short, no, not at all. Performance is again another impressive and near faultless display. The only drops seem to happen in the real-time cutscenes, another key element of all Hideo's engines, and even these are very rare, with a low of 44 in a very alpha effect heavy scene. Again, another core element of this and previous engines, but in general play it never really skips, no matter if you are sneaking around trying to silent take down a base, or instead going charging in full hand to hand to grab that vital intel. Again, these are stress test scenarios, and the drop frames here are a result of what looks like IO activity with the combat metrics and the strong light source from the fire. Both riding across country or at home in your base, it is a near faultless and static 60 millisecond display, and in the times it does dip, they come in very small scenes at sector points, bounding box, as you ride most likely for streaming and cube map probe intersections, or when there is no player control. Hideo and team have delivered and returned to its previous lofty performance heights, allowing you to enjoy the game with no hiccups. It also enables it to look and feel that little bit more impressive. Over 30 minutes of captured footage has enabled me with my own bespoke tools only these handful of drops, resulting in 41 dropped frames in a near 20,000 delivered across a 5-minute run. It is of no concern here at all. If you wish to learn more about the history of the franchise and the engines across the years, please check out my in-depth look at the older games in my retrospective sections. This should also help keep you entertained while you wait for my detailed analysis or for your own copy to arrive. The opening of the game is typical Hideo mixture of horror and his own unique styles and methods, highlighting even more how sad it is that we will not see what he would have achieved with the Silent Hill franchise and his big delve into the horror genre. Maybe his next game away from the Metal Gear series will let him flex this side that he has dipped into across the Snake Tales over the years. It was engrossing, atmospheric, and highlighted Hideo's more grown-up and personal, intimate direction style now, with the real-time cutscenes allowing the flow even more seamless than ever before. Even a controller icon is used to draw your attention that you are always in control and could dive back into action at any point. And this is all done without a stutter or dropped frame. It really is a very impressive show. I have been loving my time with the Phantom Pain thus far, and I have much more to find and explore and complete over the next few days as I work through my thorough and detailed analysis of this stunning and possibly Game of the Year winner. Never have I felt so connected and involved in a Metal Gear game till now, and I have loved and adored the previous games throughout, so that is a big statement for me to make. The open-ended nature of not only path but mission completion is incredible, allowing you to tackle each and every problem unique to yourself and methods as you learn more while you go, within the world and characters all opening up to you. All I can say at this point is I cannot rate it high enough, and I'm sure once I have completed it that will not change, but when we next meet I will have done just that, and so I can give you my complete verdict on this. For now, I will leave you with a few more minutes to see you through the weekend and bank holiday. Be sure to check out my Black Ops 3 information and my first contact analysis and performance check on the PS4 version of Mad Max, another open world adventure that looks great. All that's left for me to say is you guys and girls take care. If you enjoyed this or any of my other work, then please hit the like and subscribe button. I really appreciate each and every one of you that does. Leave all your thoughts and your feedback below. I love to hear what you guys and girls have to say. And as always, you take care, and I'll see you very soon on the next one.
Go ahead and call the chopper.
Took you so long. We'll talk, but not here.